Hey there, internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of AC Discovery, my weekly Saturday show where I sit down and talk about anime or comics that I am sitting through and reading or watching. This week, continuing with my episode from last week where I read and consumed and devoured Paper Girls Volume 1 and immediately ordered Volumes 2 and 3, I sat down with Paper Girls Volume 2 this week. And so last week we left off with the girls being teleported into the future for them, which, you know, if they're set in the 80s, late 80s, they were sent to, as we find out here, 2016, November 2016, so right before the election. And there's definitely some interesting nods in seeing that this basically came out right around the election. They very much kind of touch on, like, oh, the dark times are coming, and the old character that we met in the first one, who seems to be kind of the sinister villain. He even makes mention here that, you know, they're getting closer to his time. Here he mentions that his mom, I believe, was born right around where they are in 2016. So, you know, he's probably 100 years away from us. It's kind of my guess-ish. Anyway, of the quartet of Aaron, Mac, Tiffany, and KJ, KJ didn't make the trip into 2016. It hasn't yet been explained as to why she didn't make it there, but the other three girls, as we saw kind of at the end of last issue, immediately run into the older version of Aaron, who, as we find out here, still works at the Preserver. She's like working as a writer, editor, something like that. So she's still getting up early, and that's why she's out there and runs into the girls. The little Apple device that they had seems to be biometrically, like, connected to Aaron, and old Aaron recognizes it as, you know, at least tech of some sort, and it says, oh, user identified or whatever, something like that. And that kind of seems to plug in some augmented reality kind of tech, and she gets a map, basically, and a route guiding her where to go, and she takes younger Aaron with her. Meanwhile, Mac and Tiffany go on their own kind of escapades to try and find, you know, the future versions of themselves. And they, in doing that, they come across the unfortunate news. It seems that Mackenzie got leukemia and maybe passed away back in the 90s. They go to Mackenzie's house, and the current tenant there says, oh, we bought this place back in 92 from the previous owners after their daughter died of leukemia. Now, it's not a surefire thing that that's Mackenzie that they're talking about. Certainly could have been somebody else bought the house, and then a few years later, the new tenants sold it to these people, so it might not be Mackenzie that we're talking about, but Mackenzie thinks it's her, and so she kind of goes through a lot of the rest of this episode with, like, these issues with a, like, almost a death wish, but a, like, I can't die, so I'm gonna go ahead and, you know, be brave kind of wish. Because, as we learned in the initial run from the characters from the future, your end is your end. Yeah, time, you might, like, fly out of sync with time, but you can't, like, die in multiple places. You die, and that's the end of your timeline. Young Aaron and old Aaron end up going to the broken down mall, and while they're there, they find a hockey stick, which was KJ's kind of, like, that was her, for lack of a better term here, her, like, identifying feature, and they pull it out of basically thin air. So whatever kind of little time warp things that are going on, they pull it out, and it has carved on it, "Don't trust other Aaron," which, of course, you've got the two of them, so they don't know if they can trust one another. But we've also been introduced to a third Aaron who has come in here and seems to be from that future, from the weird, it's got kind of that weird Futurama-y language that I talked about last week. She's got a translator. As we find out, she is effectively a clone of this young Aaron, and she seems to be maybe one of the bad guys, because she definitely seems to be kind of shifty, as the girls kind of deal with her. The hockey stick also says go to the fourth folding, which the little augmented MapQuest Google Maps thing, Apple Maps I guess it would be, seems to say is somewhere up in like 1,000 feet in the air. But fortunately, Aaron's sister is a helicopter pilot and is able to ultimately get them up there, as we've also seen, like, creatures, which are, they seem to be like those little microbial, ugly, piggy kind of things. I don't know what they're called. I don't know how to describe them, but, like, I see them in, like, oh, these are the kinds of things that can even survive the vacuum of space, or something like that. But they are warped through this whole time traveling thing, and their size dimensions also get warped. So they're giant creatures that are like monsters coming out of like the lakes and stuff. And they're fighting with one another and going crazy, and people are starting to freak out while the girls are trying to get to this next destination, hoping that will lead them to their friend KJ. So Old Aaron and Old Aaron's sister, Missy, I think, basically take the girls up in a helicopter to the fourth folding, as it is called, and a little vortex hole thing opens up in the sky. And, earlier the girls also, like, sent fake Aaron, like, clone Aaron, into the fifth folding, which had, like, a futuristic kind of place setting that we kind of peered into. They threw her into that as she tried to basically get them to go there of their own accord, and they were not having it. They didn't trust her. And then she basically shot Old Aaron, and so they were like, yep, this is definitely not the right person to trust. So they threw her back into the future and escaped her, and with Old Aaron and Missy's help, they flew into the fourth folding, jumped into it, and managed to find, at the end of this set of issues, they managed to find KJ in this weird grass field area. Apparently KJ's only been there a few hours, so probably time is passing somewhat simultaneously for these pairs of people, or sets of people. But we don't know what's going on here. There is like a giant kind of image on a hill, so presumably this is some kind of futuristic place that we have teleported into now. Maybe potential super futuristic, or it could be super past. I don't know. But I'm interested and eager to continue seeing where this story goes. So there's a lot of kind of new stuff introduced here, but we don't really get too much of really like what is going on in the future that has led to this little time war thing that's going on. So I'm curious to see when we start getting to see maybe that stuff unfold a little bit. I'm going to keep chipping away at this, so I'll be back next week with Volume 3, I'm sure. Let me know what you think of Paper Girls in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. And until next time, from here at the Trove, treasure your friends.